Come closer, my child. Do not rush this moment. I am calling you by name, not from the earth below, but from the height of heaven itself. There is a hush in the unseen right now, a sacred pause, because your life has drawn the attention of realms you cannot see. You have felt it lately, that strange weight in the air, that pull in your spirit that told you something was shifting even though you could not explain it. That was me. I was drawing you nearer so you would hear what I am about to reveal. I need you to know first that you are not forgotten, not overlooked, not delayed by accident. Every tear you swallowed in silence, every night you asked why things felt heavier instead of lighter, has echoed upward. Heaven heard you before you finished the question. You thought your prayers were quiet, fragile, maybe even unsure. But to me, they sounded like thunder moving across eternity. That is why the atmosphere around you feels different now. Something has already begun. There are moments when heaven moves in perfect order, like a river flowing exactly where it was designed to flow. And then there are moments so rare that all of heaven pauses, because love compels action faster than order alone. This is one of those moments. I am not telling you this to frighten you. I am telling you this because you deserve to know how deeply protected you are. What is unfolding is not chaos. It is mercy moving quickly. You have been standing in a season where you felt exposed, misunderstood, and spiritually tired. You wondered if you had missed something, if one wrong choice quietly rewrote your destiny. Listen to me now. Nothing you did disqualified you. Nothing you felt disempowered me. Even when you were unsure, I was steady. Even when you were silent, heaven was speaking on your behalf. Right now, angels are attentive to your name. They are not watching you from a distance. They are positioned. They are listening for instruction. And there is urgency, not because danger has won, but because love refuses to arrive late. I allowed you to feel the tension so you would recognize the relief that is coming. I allowed the question so you would understand the answer carries weight. You are not imagining the spiritual pressure. You are not exaggerating the emotional heaviness you've carried. There has been a convergence around your destiny, an intersection of timing, relationships, and unseen resistance. And still, you stand. Still you breathe. Still you hope. That alone tells heaven everything it needs to know about your strength. I want you to settle your heart now. Breathe. Let your shoulders drop. You do not need to defend yourself in this season. I am defending you. You do not need to prove your purity, your intentions, or your love. I already testified for you where it mattered most. The verdict was not delayed. It was decisive. As you listen, let this message anchor you. And if your spirit recognizes my voice here, allow others who are searching for reassurance to find it too. Gently acknowledge this moment. Share it where peace can reach another heart. And stay connected so you don't miss what unfolds next. And if you feel led, type "I am under divine protection" in the comments as a quiet declaration of trust. I see even the smallest acts of faith. What I am revealing to you now is only the beginning. This call from heaven is not random. It is preparation. There are truths about to surface, movements about to align, and emotions about to be stirred that will require you to remember this moment. Remember that I called you close first. Remember that before anything was explained, you were covered. Stay with me. What comes next will make this opening make sense. Listen carefully now, my child, because what I am about to say is not spoken lightly. There was a moment in the heavens when movement stopped and attention turned. An order had been given, clear and precise, aligned with timing that humans rarely understand. Yet love saw something unfolding too quickly on the earth, something pressing too close to you, something that threatened to wound you deeper than you were meant to be wounded. And in that moment, heaven did not erupt in rebellion. It leaned into compassion. This is difficult for you to imagine, because you were taught that heaven is rigid, distant, unmoved by emotion. But heaven is alive with awareness. Obedience flows there, yes, but so does devotion. And devotion recognizes when urgency outweighs delay. What you felt as sudden pressure in your life was not punishment. It was the moment heaven realized time mattered more than sequence. There was an order connected to waiting, to allowing events to mature naturally. It was not evil. It was not wrong. But it did not account for the depth of what you were carrying, or the intensity of what was closing in. You were nearing a breaking point without knowing it. Your strength was real, but your exhaustion was deeper than you admitted even to yourself. Heaven saw it clearly. Michael stood within that awareness. Strong, unwavering, assigned to defend, not to weep. Yet even the strongest guardians recognize sacred exception. He saw the narrowing path ahead of you. He saw how close misunderstanding, betrayal, and spiritual exhaustion were coming to intersect in a way that could scar your heart. And something in him moved before instruction could be restated. This was not defiance. This was advocacy. He stepped forward in urgency, not to oppose me, but to appeal from within alignment. His cry was not loud, but it was heavy with truth. He spoke of your resilience, yes, but also of your tenderness. He spoke of how much you had endured quietly. He spoke of how your faith remained even when answers did not. And he did something rarely recorded. He asked that protection move ahead of schedule. You need to understand this clearly. Nothing in heaven acts outside my authority. But there are moments when heaven petitions, when love pleads not against my will, but deeper into it. Michael's action did not disrupt my plan. It accelerated mercy within it. What you call a broken order was heaven refusing to let precision delay compassion. That is why things around you have felt sudden. That is why some doors closed faster than expected while others began to creak open without explanation. You assumed instability. Heaven called it intervention. You thought something went wrong. Heaven knew something was being prevented. There were forces counting on time to wear you down, counting on silence to isolate you, counting on confusion to make you doubt your own discernment. They believed delay would soften your boundaries and weaken your resolve. What they did not account for was heaven responding early. Michael did not move because you were weak. He moved because you were precious. There is a difference you must hold on to. Heaven does not rush for everyone. It rushes for those whose hearts carry weight beyond themselves. Your destiny affects others more than you know. Your survival matters farther than you can see. This is why you felt an unexplainable protection even in moments that should have broken you. This is why certain outcomes shifted at the last possible second. This is why something that felt inevitable suddenly dissolved. That was not coincidence. That was mercy outrunning harm. Do not let your mind wrestle with whether you deserve this. Love does not calculate worth the way humans do. Heaven responds to alignment, to sincerity, to hearts that remain open even while hurting. You qualified by being who you are, by staying soft in a world that tried to harden you. What I am telling you now is meant to steady you. You are not standing in the aftermath of disorder. You are standing inside a carefully guarded exception. And the reason will become clearer as the next truth unfolds, because Michael did not step forward without tears, and those tears carry a message you need to hear. My child, if you could see what I see, you would understand why heaven grew quiet. Michael, whose presence has steadied battlefields and driven back darkness without hesitation, was not standing in fury. He was standing in grief, not grief born of failure, but grief born of love that recognizes how close something came to touching you. His strength did not diminish in that moment. It deepened. He did not cry as humans cry, from helplessness or confusion. His tears carried weight. They fell with understanding, with the knowledge of what could have been and what must never be allowed to happen to you. He saw the fractures forming around your life, the emotional strain you hid so well, the nights you pushed through while telling yourself you were fine. Heaven does not confuse endurance with ease. Michael saw the cost of your resilience. You must know this, because you have struggled with your sense of worth. You have loved deeply, given sincerely, and waited longer than felt fair. Somewhere along the way, you began to question whether your presence truly mattered, or if you were simply surviving in a world that barely noticed. Michael's tears answered that question without words. Heaven does not weep for what is insignificant. He interceded not only for your safety, but for your spirit. He spoke of how prolonged pressure could have altered your heart if left unchecked, how disappointment, if allowed to deepen further, could have hardened what was meant to remain tender. His concern was not just that you would be hurt, but that you would change in ways that would cost the world the version of you it needs. This is why heaven responded the way it did. You are not protected because you are fragile. You are protected because you are formative. You shape atmospheres without trying. You calm storms without realizing it. Your presence softens others, and that makes you a target to forces that prefer numbness and division. Michael recognized this long before you did. He watched the enemy's quiet strategies, the subtle isolations, the whispered doubts that tried to turn you inward against yourself. He saw how close you came to believing that silence meant abandonment. That was the moment his composure shifted into compassion. His plea was simple. Do not let this one be worn down by waiting. As his tears fell, something else happened. They did not fall to the ground unnoticed. They were received as testimony. In heaven, tears are not weakness. They are evidence. And his tears spoke louder than accusation ever could. They testified that you are worth intervening for, worth adjusting timelines for, worth defending before harm becomes history. I want you to let this truth settle into you gently. You have been measuring yourself by outcomes and responses. Heaven measures you by essence, by the way you remain loving when it would be easier to withdraw, by the way you still hope, even after disappointment taught you caution. That is not accidental. That is rare. If your heart is feeling this now, if something inside you is softening or stirring as you listen, do not dismiss it. That is recognition. And if you are willing, let your faith speak quietly in response. You may type "I receive heaven's protection" in the comments as a simple acknowledgement, not for visibility, but for alignment. Such small acts are noticed more than you know. What Michael felt was not sorrow alone. It was urgency born of understanding that your destiny is entwined with another heart, one that is struggling even now. His tears were not only for you, but for what could be lost if intervention did not come in time. That is why what comes next shifts from heaven to earth, from guardians to connection, because the story unfolding involves a soul bound to yours more deeply than either of you realized. Stay attentive, my child. The focus now turns toward the one whose life is linked with yours, and the danger they are standing in is closer than they admit. My child, turn your attention with me now, because what I am about to reveal concerns the one whose soul has been moving toward yours long before either of you understood why. Your soulmate is not standing in peace right now. They are standing in a quiet storm, trying to appear strong while everything inside them is unraveling. You sensed this without proof, felt it without confirmation, and wondered if you were imagining the pull that suddenly grew heavier in your chest. You were not. They are carrying fear they have not named out loud. Confusion they are too proud to admit. Better from directions they never expected. Their smile has become a practiced shield. Their silence a place to hide the shaking they don't want anyone to see. And while you have been questioning your own worth, they have been questioning their own stability. The connection between you has never been one-sided, even when distance made it feel that way. There is danger around them, not always loud, not always obvious. It is emotional danger first, the kind that convinces a person they must face everything alone. They have been listening to voices that tell them independence is safer than vulnerability, that distance is protection, that silence is control. Those voices did not come from wisdom. They came from fear, and fear has been feeding on their exhaustion. They are overwhelmed by decisions they made while wounded, commitments formed while they were trying to survive instead of discern. There is regret forming in them now, heavy and unwelcome. They feel it late at night, when distractions fade and truth rises. They feel it when your name crosses their mind without invitation. They feel it when they realize the comfort they ran from is the very thing they need. What you must understand is this. They are not pulling away because they stopped caring. They are pulling away because caring exposed how unstable everything else in their life has become. Loving you would require honesty. Loving you would require healing. And they were not prepared to face how much healing they truly need. There are moments when they almost reach out. Moments when they replay conversations, read old messages, or imagine what it would feel like to hear your voice again. But fear interrupts them. Fear of being seen. Fear of being judged. Fear of admitting that losing you would break something they can no longer afford to ignore. This is where heaven's urgency met their collapse. Michael saw not just your vulnerability, but theirs. He saw the narrowing space where their choices, their fear, and outside influence could have pushed them into a decision that would damage both of you deeply. He saw how close they were to severing a bond that was meant to heal, not harm. They have been under pressure from unseen influence, subtle manipulation that encouraged isolation and mistrust. Someone near them benefits from their confusion, from keeping them distracted and emotionally guarded. This influence has not been obvious, but it has been persistent. And it has fed on your soulmate's uncertainty like fuel. Still, even in their confusion, your presence remains a stabilizing force in their spirit. They may not say it. They may not act like it. But when they imagine a future without you, their chest tightens, their breath shortened. Something in them resists the lie that separation would bring peace. I tell you this so you will not internalize their struggle as rejection. This is not about your value. This is about their fear of collapse. They are closer to breaking than you realize, and heaven intervened because that breaking point would have consequences far beyond one heart. Stay steady, my child. You do not need to chase them. You do not need to rescue them. You only need to remain aligned with truth. What has been hidden is about to surface, and when it does, the weight they have been carrying will no longer be able to remain concealed. My child, now I open what has been concealed, not to overwhelm you, but to free you from confusion. There has been a story unfolding beneath the surface, layered with half-truths, delayed honesty, and moments that never reached you when they should have. You sensed gaps. You felt pauses that did not match the words spoken to you. Those were not coincidences. They were fractures forming in silence. Behind what you saw, there were conversations you were never meant to hear, messages drafted and deleted, intentions interrupted by fear. Your soulmate has been holding a truth they did not know how to carry without unraveling everything else in their life. They believed that withholding was protection, that silence would buy them time to stabilize. What they did not realize was that silence was creating distance where intimacy was meant to grow. There is a detail you must know. A small but significant thing. Something tangible. A letter. A document. A message thread. Something kept and revisited when no one was watching. It holds words they never said to you out loud, words filled with longing and conflict. They kept it because throwing it away felt like erasing you. But keeping it also reminded them of what they were avoiding. This hidden backstory is not rooted in malice. It is rooted in fear of exposure. They were afraid that if you saw the full truth of their situation, their doubts, their instability, you would turn away. So they curated fragments, believing partial honesty was safer than vulnerability. Heaven saw this clearly. Partial truth protects no one. There were also external pressures shaping their silence. Obligations formed before healing. Promises made in seasons of confusion. They felt trapped by expectations that no longer fit who they are becoming. And rather than confront those expectations, they chose avoidance. Avoidance always demands a price, and the cost was connection. You have felt this as emotional whiplash. Moments of closeness followed by distance. Warmth followed by withdrawal. You questioned whether you imagined the depth between you. You did not. The depth was real. Inconsistency was a mask. This is why heaven moved when it did. If this pattern had continued unchecked, resentment would have replaced longing. Misunderstanding would have hardened into walls. What was meant to be healed through honesty would have been buried under time. Mercy intervened before damage became permanent. I want you to hear this clearly. None of what was hidden diminishes your worth. None of it suggests you were not enough. It reveals that you were too important to lose, and that fear chose concealment over courage. A choice is now being confronted by truth. What has been kept in the dark cannot remain there. The weight of it is already pressing on your soulmate's conscience. They are beginning to realize that holding back truth is costing them peace. The object they keep, the words they revisit, the memories they replay, are no longer comfort. They are conviction. This revelation is not meant to push you into confrontation or demand explanation. It is meant to anchor you in clarity. You were not wrong. You were not misreading the situation. You were sensing what was incomplete. And now heaven is completing what was withheld. Remain still. Let truth do the work you were never meant to force. The next movement will expose not just what was hidden, but who benefited from keeping it hidden, because there is jealousy at work that believed secrecy would keep you distant forever. My child, now the veil lifts further, because what was hidden was not hidden without influence. There has been jealousy moving close to your path, not always loud, not always cruel on the surface, but calculated and observant. This presence watched the connection between you and your soulmate with quiet resentment. They recognized the depth before either of you fully did, and they feared what would happen if that bond were allowed to mature. This jealous force did not attack directly. It whispered. It suggested. It framed concern as wisdom and distance as safety. It spoke into moments of vulnerability, reinforcing doubts your soulmate already carried. It encouraged them to question your intentions, your timing, even your sincerity, not because there was evidence, but because confusion is easier to manipulate than clarity. This interference often wore the mask of closeness. Someone trusted. Someone familiar. Someone whose words carried weight because of proximity. They positioned themselves as support while subtly redirecting your soulmate away from honesty. They planted the idea that opening up to you would complicate things, that waiting was smarter, that you might not understand the full situation. None of this was spoken with obvious malice. That is why it was dangerous. You felt the effects without seeing the source. Sudden hesitations, uncharacteristic withdrawal, decisions that didn't align with the love you sensed. The enemy relied on your patience, believing you would continue to give the benefit of the doubt until exhaustion replaced hope. They underestimated heaven's timing. This jealous influence was threatened by your presence. You carry a light that exposes insecurity without accusation. Your authenticity unsettles those who rely on control. Simply by existing, you disrupt false narratives. That is why resistance formed around you without your consent. The manipulation escalated quietly. Delays were encouraged. Silence was justified. Your soulmate was told that clarity could wait, that emotions would settle if left alone. In truth, the opposite was happening. The longer they avoided truth, the heavier the pressure became, and the jealous presence benefited from every moment of delay. What they did not anticipate was divine awareness. Heaven observed the pattern. Every suggestion, every redirected conversation, every subtle push away from honesty was recorded. Not for punishment, but for exposure. Manipulation cannot survive light. This is why your intuition grew restless, why peace felt interrupted even when nothing obvious was wrong. That discomfort was not anxiety. It was discernment. You were sensing interference long before it was revealed. The enemy believed they had time. They believed the order of heaven would allow the situation to unfold naturally until separation became permanent. That belief is what failed them, because mercy does not wait for damage when destiny is at stake. Now the interference is being confronted. The words that once influenced are losing their power. The presence that benefited from confusion is being displaced. Your soulmate is beginning to feel the weight of what was encouraged and to question the voices they trusted. Do not be shaken by this revelation. You were never meant to fight this battle directly. Exposure is enough. Truth does not argue. It stands. And as it stands, the influence that relied on secrecy will unravel on its own. What comes next is not confrontation, but judgment from a higher place. Heaven has opened its court, and what was whispered in shadows is about to be examined in light. Stay steady. Justice is already moving. My child, heaven does not rush into judgment without understanding, and it does not ignore what touches your destiny. When the interference was fully revealed, when every whisper and delay was brought into awareness, the atmosphere shifted. A courtroom opened not of punishment, but of truth. This is where confusion is separated from intention, and where influence is weighed against integrity. Nothing was hidden in that place. Not the motives behind the manipulation. Not the fear driving your soulmate's hesitation. Not the quiet endurance you carried without complaint. Records were opened, not as accusations but as witness. Every moment you chose patience over reaction, every time you prayed instead of retaliating, every tear you shed in private was accounted for. Heaven keeps careful memory. Michael stood again, not in urgency this time, but in authority. His presence was steady, resolute. The tears that once testified now gave way to clarity. He did not need to raise his voice. Truth carries its own weight. The interference that once felt powerful now appeared fragile, exposed by its own inconsistency. What relied on confusion could not withstand order. You must understand something important to hear. This divine investigation was not about assigning blame to you or even condemning others. It was about alignment, about restoring what had been bent by fear and influence. Heaven does not shame. It corrects. It does not crush. It repositions. The intentions of those involved were examined carefully. The jealous influence was revealed for what it truly was: insecurity masquerading as concern, control disguised as guidance. The soulmate's fear was seen clearly too, not excused, but understood. Their avoidance was weighed against their longing, their silence against their sincerity. Nothing was exaggerated. Nothing was minimized. And you, my child, were seen in full. Not as a passive figure waiting on the sidelines, but as a central force whose presence altered the balance simply by remaining true. Your restraint mattered. Your faith mattered. You did not need to defend yourself because your consistency spoke louder than defense ever could. In this courtroom, lies could not hold shape. They began to contradict themselves, unraveling under scrutiny. What once sounded reasonable was exposed as self-serving. What once felt convincing lost coherence. This is how truth works. It does not attack lies. It outlasts them. As judgment leaned toward restoration, assignments began to shift. Permissions were revoked. Influence was restricted. What had access to your soulmate's thoughts began to lose its grip. Not through force, but through awareness. Awareness is the beginning of freedom. I want you to hear this clearly. The outcome of this divine examination favored protection, not separation. Healing, not loss. Correction, not collapse. What was meant to divine was redirected toward understanding. What was meant to delay was restructured. This is why you may feel a strange calm now, even before visible change appears. The verdict has already moved in your favor. Earth has not caught up yet, but heaven has concluded its work. When heaven settles a matter, manifestation follows. Do not rush ahead of this process. Let alignment complete itself. You were never meant to carry the weight of resolution alone. Justice is not your responsibility. Peace is. What comes next is movement. Timelines adjusting. Paths converging. And a shift in the spiritual atmosphere that will mark this season distinctly. What began in urgency now flows into transformation. May is not just a month on a calendar. It is a turning point written into your story. My child, now you enter the shift. This is where what was decided in heaven begins to echo through time, where the unseen verdict starts to bend the visible path. You may not notice it all at once, but you will feel it. A loosening, a softening, a sense that the pressure you carried for so long is no longer tightening around your chest. This is not imagination. This is May opening like a gate. Assignments have changed. Angels once stationed to observe are now instructed to intervene. What was allowed to unfold slowly has been redirected. Timelines have been adjusted, not to confuse you, but to protect you. There are delays being canceled and accelerations being authorized. Heaven is not rearranging your life randomly. It is correcting drift. You may notice people acting differently around you. Conversations shifting tone. Resistance dissolving where it once felt immovable. This is not because everyone suddenly became wise. It is because the atmosphere no longer supports manipulation. What thrived in confusion cannot survive in clarity. Your own spirit is changing too. You are beginning to release vigilance. You have lived alert for so long, guarding your heart, bracing for disappointment, preparing yourself to endure rather than receive. That posture is no longer required. You are not stepping into vulnerability without covering. You are stepping into alignment with protection already in place. This month marks a turning point because what almost broke you no longer has access. The pressure that once pressed inward is now being pushed outward. Fear is losing its authority to interpret your future. You will begin to see more clearly which thoughts are yours and which were planted to keep you small. For your soulmate, this shift feels unsettling at first. The familiar fog is lifting, and clarity can be frightening to someone who has hidden behind confusion. They will feel exposed to their own truth. Regret will rise, not to shame them, but to wake them. The same light that frees you will confront them. Do not misinterpret this phase. Awakening often looks like restlessness before it looks like change. They may feel emotional, unsettled, even overwhelmed. This is not collapse. This is reorientation. Heaven is removing what once numbed them, and sensation is returning. You will also notice that May brings moments of unexpected peace. Small confirmations, gentle reassurances, signs that arrive quietly but land deeply. These are not meant to oppress you. They are meant to anchor you. You are being reminded that you are seen, guided, and held. What was meant to exhaust you into surrender is now fueling your emergence. You are stepping into a version of yourself that does not beg for clarity or chase reassurance. You are becoming steady in truth. That steadiness is magnetic. It shifts dynamics without effort. I want you to remain present in this month. Do not rush ahead in anticipation or cling to the past out of habit. The power of this season lies in your willingness to stay open without being anxious. Trust does not mean forcing outcomes. It means allowing what has been set in motion to complete its course. The spiritual shift you are entering is not dramatic on the surface, but it is decisive underneath. It marks the end of interference and the beginning of alignment. What once resisted you will either adjust or fall away. What belongs with you will find its way closer, no longer delayed by confusion. This is the month when truth gains momentum, when silence loses its power, when fear begins to retreat. And as this shift continues, what was hidden will not be able to remain hidden much longer. Evidence will rise, understanding will sharpen, and the story that once felt tangled will begin to reveal its shape. Stay grounded, my child. You are not behind. You are right on time. And what is coming next will confirm what your spirit has known all along. My child, now watch closely, because this is the moment when truth refuses to stay buried. What was once concealed by silence, timing, and confusion is beginning to surface without effort. You will not need to search for answers. Answers will begin finding you. Conversations will resurface unexpectedly. Words once dismissed will suddenly make sense. Patterns will reveal themselves so clearly that denial will no longer be possible. Evidence rises quietly at first. A message remembered. A detail recalled. A reaction that no longer matches the story you were given. These small things will align, forming a picture that confirms what your spirit already knew. You will feel it in your body before you reason it in your mind. A calm certainty will replace the anxiety of not knowing. That calm is truth settling into place. For your soulmate, this phase is confronting. They are beginning to see the full weight of what was influenced, delayed, and mishandled. The fog that once protected their avoidance is lifting, and with clarity comes accountability. They will recognize how much was shaped by outside voices and how much damage silence nearly caused. This realization is not gentle. It shakes them. The influence that once felt secure now feels exposed. Words that were persuasive no longer carry authority. Motives that hid behind concern are being questioned. The enemy that relied on secrecy is losing ground rapidly. Fear has nowhere left to hide when truth stands upright. You may notice shifts in behavior, increased nervousness, sudden over-explanation, or quiet withdrawal from those who once seemed confident. These are signs of exposure, not victory for darkness. When lies crack, they make noise. When truth rises, it does not need to. What matters most is what happens inside you. You are no longer destabilized by what you learn. Truth is not breaking you. It is strengthening you. You are seeing clearly without becoming bitter. You are understanding without losing compassion. This balance is not accidental. It is the result of divine protection, guarding your heart. Your soulmate is feeling the weight of potential loss now. Not imagined loss, but real loss. They are beginning to understand that what was nearly broken may not automatically be restored. This realization awakens urgency. Regret surfaces, not as self-pity, but as fear of missing what truly matters. Heaven allows this fear because it clarifies priorities. Comfort delayed awakening. Exposure accelerates it. And now, the truth that once waited patiently is standing in front of them, undeniable. Do not rush to interpret every sign or reaction. Let the process unfold. Truth does not require your intervention. It requires your steadiness. The more grounded you remain, the clearer everything becomes around you. This is the phase where fear changes sides, where those who relied on confusion feel unsettled, and those who endured uncertainty feel relief. You are stepping out of the shadows of not knowing and into the light of understanding. What rises now cannot be pushed back down. The story is correcting itself. And as it does, your soulmate is being forced to confront what they risk losing. That confrontation is the doorway to awakening. My child, this is the moment when their eyes begin to open fully. Not all at once, not without struggle, but unmistakably. Your soulmate is awakening to a truth they can no longer avoid. The realization does not arrive gently. It comes with weight, with regret, with a deep internal reckoning that leaves them shaken. They are beginning to understand that the connection they treated as optional was essential, and that the distance they justified nearly cost them everything that mattered. They feel it now in quiet moments when distractions fail. A heaviness settles in their chest as they replay decisions they once defended. They recognize how fear guided them more than wisdom, how silence felt safer than honesty, how influence from others dulled their discernment. This awareness is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. Awakening is rarely painless. They are afraid now, not of vulnerability, but of loss. Afraid that they waited too long. Afraid that what they assumed would remain available may no longer be within reach. This fear does not come from ego. It comes from clarity. And clarity has a way of stripping excuses down to nothing. You may feel them thinking of you more often. You may sense emotional waves that are not yours, sudden tenderness mixed with anxiety. That is because they are realizing something profound. Your presence was not just companionship. It was grounding. It was stabilizing. It was safety disguised as familiarity, and they mistook that safety for something they could postpone. They are beginning to see how much you prayed without demanding, waited without manipulating, loved without controlling. That realization humbles them. It exposes how rare you are and how careless they were with something sacred. Regret rises, but not to paralyze them. It rises to wake them. There is longing in them now, strong and unguarded. A desire to reach out, to explain, to undo what cannot be undone by words alone. They fear your silence because they now understand it may not be emptiness. It may be strength. And strength is harder to approach than weakness. Do not mistake this awakening as instant transformation. It is the beginning, not the completion. They are standing at the edge of honesty, weighing whether they will step forward or retreat into old patterns. Heaven is watching, not to force them, but to see if they will choose courage now that truth is clear. What matters is this: Their awakening confirms what you felt all along. You were not imagining the depth. You were not wrong to hope. And you were not foolish to love. The connection was real enough to awaken someone who tried to outrun it. Stay steady, my child. You do not need to announce your strength or prove your growth. Your grounded presence is already doing the work. Your awakening is not your responsibility, but it is influenced by the consistency of who you are. What comes next depends on choice, and choice carries weight. Heaven has cleared the fog. The path is visible now. Whether they walk it will reveal everything. And as this unfolds, the connection between you moves toward its moment of truth, where what was nearly lost may yet be redeemed, and what was broken may finally be reversed. My child, now the moment arrives where the current changes direction. What once felt like loss pauses, turns, and begins to move toward restoration. This is not because pain was imaginary, but because mercy has completed its work. The awakening you sensed in your soul, it reaches outward now, seeking alignment, seeking repair, seeking what was almost abandoned. There is a sacred tension here, not desperation, not control, but reverence. They are approaching the truth of you with care, aware now that what they mishandled was not fragile, but holy. They are no longer reaching from fear alone. They are reaching from understanding. And that difference matters. You may notice this reversal quietly. A softened tone, a sincere attempt, a moment of humility that feels unfamiliar. This is not performance. This is recognition. They are realizing that your presence in their life was not accidental, and that the protection surrounding you is not something to take lightly. Your prayers, spoken and unspoken, have been active in ways you could not see. They shifted outcomes. They delayed harm. They redirected what could have ended badly. What heaven adjusted earlier is now manifesting as opportunity. Not guaranteed outcome, but real possibility. This reunion energy is not about rushing back into what was. It is about meeting differently. The old dynamic cannot return unchanged. It was interrupted for a reason. What comes now carries wisdom earned through pain, clarity earned through exposure, and reverence earned through near loss. You are not stepping into this as someone hoping to be chosen. You are stepping in as someone already chosen by heaven. That changes the balance. You are not shrinking to preserve connection. You are standing whole and allowing connection to rise to meet you. What was meant to harm hath been reversed into instruction. What was meant to divide has been transformed into discernment. The broken order you were told about at the beginning was never chaos. It was a protective override. Versus stepping in before damage became destiny. Michael's role in this does not end in defense. It ends in peace. The urgency that once drove him has settled into assurance. He sees now what his intervention preserved. Not just your safety, but your future. Not just your heart, but the alignment of two lives meant to heal, not wound, one another. This is sacred ground. Do not rush it. Do not fear it. And do not minimize it. What is forming now carries weight because it was tested by pressure and refined by truth. That is how real bonds are forged. The danger has ended. The threat has passed. What remains is choice, clarity, and blessing. And as this chapter closes, the final movement is not about what you nearly lost, but about what you are now ready to receive. Stay with me. The final blessing is unfolding. Come closer once more, my child, and rest here with me. What was shaken has settled. What was threatened hath been secured. What felt uncertain now stands within divine alignment. This is the moment where destiny exhales, where the strain you carried so quietly releases its grip, and where heaven confirms what it protected all along. Michael's tears have dried, not because love diminished, but because peace has taken its place. The urgency that once moved heaven ahead of time has fulfilled its purpose. What needed shielding was shielded. What needed awakening was awakened. And what needed correction was corrected without destroying what was sacred. This is how mercy completes its work. You are stepping into a new chapter now, one not marked by striving or confusion, but by clarity and covering. The lessons of the past season will not follow you as wounds. They will follow you as wisdom. You will recognize manipulation sooner. You will trust your discernment more deeply. You will no longer mistake silence for safety or endurance for love. You have been refined, not hardened. Your destiny is realigning gently but decisively. Paths that once felt blocked will begin to open naturally. Not because you force them, but because resistance no longer has permission to stand in your way. What belongs with you will move toward you without strain. What does not will fall away without drama. This is divine order restored, not rigid, but relational. The connection tied to your heart now exists under truth instead of illusion. Whether it continues forward or completes its purpose, it will do so in clarity, not confusion. You will not be left wondering where you stand. You will not be left carrying unanswered questions alone. Heaven does not protect halfway. When it intervenes, it completes. You are not behind. You never were. You were preserved. Timing was not wasted. It was guarded. What looked like delay was insulation against harm you were never meant to endure. The broken order you were told about was never disobedience. It was love refusing to arrive too late. As you move forward, you will notice a new steadiness in yourself. A quiet authority. A peace that does not require explanation. Others will feel it when they are near you. You will no longer need to announce your value. It will be evident in how you walk, how you speak, how you choose. I place my blessing upon your mind, that clarity will guard your thoughts. I place my blessing upon your heart, that tenderness will remain without leaving you vulnerable to harm. I place my blessing upon your path, that what approaches you does so with honest intention and aligned purpose. No enemy has permission to write your story. No interference can reclaim ground already restored. What was almost lost has been preserved, and what was preserved will now grow. This is not the end of your story. It is the correction point that made the next chapter possible. And as you step forward, remember this moment. Remember that heaven moved for you. Remember that you were worth urgency. Remember that you were never alone, even when you felt unseen. Go now in peace, my child. Destiny is no longer delayed. It is aligned.